Yo, what is up, my people? Thanks for swinging by. Today I'm going to talk about zero confirmation and double spends, and I'm going to cover a few different ways where somebody can double spend your Litecoin. But first, I wanted to show you guys this diagram right here. And so this is kind of like a hypothetical example. This diagram is a representation of what a Litecoin network might look like. And everyone in this network has a full node. So every one of those little computer boxes that you see, let's pretend those are full nodes, okay? And in this network, we see that there's Amazon. And Amazon is a business who's running their own full nodes, and they are using that to accept Litecoin payments. And then you have me, I'm in the corner right there with the glasses and stuff. And then up on the top right, you'll see let's just call that like a mining pool, okay? So ant pool or something like that. Let's just so that's what the three people head, that's who they represent. So basically, a zero confirmation is when your nodes relay your transaction, but your transaction hasn't actually been included in a block yet. And so zero confirmation is basically when you broadcast your transaction. When you send one Litecoin to an address, it immediately gets relayed to the network. So that's zero confirmation, and it still hasn't been included in a block. Okay, and so where this transaction actually goes is it goes into a meme pool, a memory pool, and so, or a mem pool, I guess, not memes, but mem pool. And so inside each one of these full nodes that we see, each of the nodes have something called a memory pool, and in this memory pool is a list of all the pending transactions in the network. Now every full node can set the size of their mempool for as big as they want or as little as they want. Some people have it at 1 gigabyte, some people at 2 gigabytes. It can be as big or small as they want. The full node user gets to decide that. Okay, so once again, a zero confirmation is when you make a payment, it gets relayed to the network, but it hasn't been included in a block yet. Now, one confirmation means that it's been included in a block and it's officially out of the memory pool. Okay, so when you send a transaction and you look at a block explorer and you see one confirmation, that means that it's been officially included in the blockchain. Now, two confirmation means that another block has been added on top of your block. Three confirmations means two blocks has been added to your block. Four confirmation means three blocks have been added, and so on and so forth. Okay, and so this right here, let's see, is an example of, you'll see here that this has about two confirmations, right? And so that means your transaction just got included into the block and it has one block added to it. And so that's how we're interpreting confirmations, and that's what confirmations mean. So the idea of zero confirmation isn't anything new. It's something Litecoin and Bitcoin have always had, and it's just more of a mindset, right? It's just a fancy word that people use to describe a mindset. People who advocate for a zero confirmation spending are saying that when you pay for something with Litecoin, you relay the transaction, you broadcast the transaction, it gets broadcast to the network, and then you just go on your way, right? You don't have to wait for it to get included into a block. That's what they are saying when they're advocating for zero confirmation spending. Now, this kind of makes sense for retail stores because it's kind of like paying for Starbucks, right? You pay for your coffee with your Starbucks app, you scan, and then you go. Like, that's the ideal world, that's the ideal situation. Now, even though this is more convenient, it's not necessarily the safest way to do business, right? And there's a reason why some exchanges require over 8 confirmations before they credit you with your Litecoin. Because the more confirmations you have in your transaction, the more confirmations you have in your transaction, the more permanent your transaction is. The harder it is for someone to reorganize the blockchain with the 51% attack or even a 30% attack to do a double spend. Amazon, hint hint. I wish Amazon would take Litecoin directly. Okay, so one way that you can do a well, let's define what double spend is first, right? A double spend is when you spend the same amount of Litecoin when you spend the same amount of Litecoin twice, and you're spending it from the same Litecoin address. So there are different ways to do it, right? One way is to have it to do it with a majority hash rate with either 51% or a 30%. Some people speculate that 30% is enough to attack the blockchain. But after 3, so what you do is you spend your Litecoin on the public network, and then you secretly mine your own blockchain privately offline, and after 3 or 4 blocks you can broadcast your secret blockchain, and the whole network will follow the secret blockchain that you just broadcast because it has the most proof of work, and it's because you have majority hash rate. And so let's go back to this diagram. So let's say I'm trying to get some free headphones from Amazon. And so I send 1 Litecoin to Amazon to buy headphones, and then I start secretly mining in my own home, right? So Amazon, let's say hypothetically, they accept 2 confirmation payments, right? And so I broadcast my blockchain after 4 blocks, after 4 confirmations, except this time I send my 1 Litecoin to my own private address. And so what's going to happen is the blockchain that was on the public network gets replaced with my secret blockchain. And so I have now possession of the same amount of Litecoin as I had before. I technically never sent it to Amazon's Litecoin address for my headphones. And so I'm spending the same Litecoin twice. I'm spending it from the same Litecoin address. And so that's one way that you can perform a double spend attack. Another way you can perform a double spend is to trick the network before your transaction gets included in a block. And this is where zero confirmation can be really dangerous, right? Because we talked about how zero confirmation is just relaying the transaction, right? It's not being included in the block. And so you can trick the network into accepting your second payment as opposed to your first payment. So one thing to know is that one cool thing about the Litecoin and Bitcoin network is one thing it does to protect you against double spends is that as soon as you relay your transaction from a Litecoin address, the nodes that receive it memorize it, they keep it in their memory pool, and if they see a similar transaction from the same address, it invalidates the double spend. It invalidates the attempted second transaction. Does that make sense? So if I send one transaction from my Litecoin address and then I try to spend it again, the nodes will reject the second one because they already know that they already have one payment. They already have one transaction from that Litecoin address. Now, here's the thing though. You can trick the network by connecting to a node that propagates information faster than other nodes. So for example, in this diagram, you see how the pool mining node, it's connected to a lot of other nodes, right? It's like the most connected node in this network. And so what that means is this mining pool node can propagate transactions, can relay transactions faster than, let's say, the Amazon node, because that's not as highly connected. And so this is what I would do. Let's say I want to pretend to get some free headphones and I want to try to do a double spend off of Amazon, and Amazon, they accept zero confirmation payments. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my node to Amazon's full node, right? Because Amazon has to have a full node because they have to validate their own transactions. And so I'm going to find out what Amazon's full node is to accept Litecoin payments. I'm going to broadcast a payment to that node, to the Litecoin address that Amazon tells me to pay to. Then, as soon as I broadcast that one transaction, I'm going to quickly connect to the mining pool node on the top right and broadcast a second transaction from the same Litecoin address, and I'm sending it back to myself. So Amazon, because they accept zero confirmation, all they see is that the transaction was relayed. They don't even see that it's included in the block yet. And so they're like, okay, you technically paid, you relayed your transaction, but what happens is if I send my transaction to the mining pool node, that pool node propagates, relays transactions a lot faster than Amazon's full node. And so more nodes in the network are going to see my second transaction as opposed to the first transaction. And so does that kind of make sense? And so what happens is instead of the first transaction being invalidated, instead of the second transaction being invalidated, it's actually the first one. So the payment that I sent to Amazon gets invalidated as opposed to the one I broadcast to the miners. And the one I broadcast to the miners is the one I sent the Litecoin to myself. And so I basically weaseled Amazon out of payments. Okay? And so this is why I personally, why merchants who accept zero confirmation payments, they're kind of taking a huge risk. And it's something that I really wouldn't recommend, at least right now, especially if you're an online merchant store. If you're a retail store, you might be okay. And the reason you might be okay is because I haven't seen a mobile wallet that's like sophisticated enough to pull this off. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you're an online store, you should definitely require a few confirmations before you accept payments. Now, another way that you can do a double spend, which is kind of like, it's kind of like cloning a Pokemon back in the day. Dude, did you do what I did when I would transfer my Pokemon or like my rare candy into like the deposit thing, and then I would turn it off. And then when I turned it on, I would end up with 99 rare candies. Or I think there was another glitch where if you send a Pokemon to your friend through the link on Game Boy, and you turned it off, you both ended up with the Pokemon. Oh my gosh, that brings back so many memories. I love it. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to show you actually is a video that Vin Armani did. And I've got to actually set this up real quick, so if you guys will give me a couple minutes, I will try to sort this out real quick. So did you guys feel like you understood what I've talked about so far when it comes to double spend payments? All right, I am hopefully good to go. Let me double check my audio. All right. Let's see. Okay, hold on. I'm still not ready. Sorry. I'm being like hella ghetto right now. I'm trying to use like this free version that only gives me like like 20 minutes of free time. So hold on, let me see if I can bring this back up. All right, that should do it. Okay, here we go. Alright, so this is a video by Vin Armani. And it's a really done well video, so I want you guys to, we're gonna watch it together and we're gonna break it down, and I'm gonna explain why this works. So this is another way somebody can perform a double spend that is different from the method that I explained to you. It's different from connecting directly to the node of the business and a more highly connected node. And so this is a little bit different, okay? So this is specifically through block cipher, and this is, he's gonna do this, demonstrate this with Dash, but I'm not trying to hate on Dash at all. It just, it's just a good example that Vin Armani has used. And wait, here, let's watch this video.
We're gonna do this one. This is actually possible right now, very, very easily, so we can show it graphically, which I think is important so that people can really understand this on Dash right now. So all that we're going to start out with is just block cipher, which is very, very popular public explorer for many coins. Dash is one of them, and then the main insight.dash.org, the main explorer for Dash. So we just have both of those open. What we're going to do is we're actually going to manually push transactions, raw transactions. We're going to take a look at them first. So the first one that we're going to take a look at is the transaction that has a fee. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to send two transactions into the network. One has a fee and one doesn't, but they're spending the same money. So it's the same input. You see this input here that starts with 495366 on this. This transaction is the one with the fee. It's got a 300 Satoshi fee, which is perfectly fine to handle this. This is less than 300 bytes in size, and there's a 1 Satoshi per byte fee to get to most of the network. So you see the addresses here that it'll send out to. XUE is a start, and XAPZ, that's going to be the change. Okay, so that's the one with the fee.
So this guy is going to do a double spend. This is his first transaction. It's the one with the mining fee.
Then what we have, I'm going to put in here basically the same transaction. I'm not going to double spend it back to myself. I'm going to double spend it to the same address, just to be a nice guy. This is again, the hash is 495. The fees, though, in this case, you see zero fee. And same addresses, XUE and XAPZ. So what we have to do first is we have to broadcast this zero fee transaction, we broadcast this to BlockCipher. Because BlockCipher, unlike the rest of the network, BlockCipher's got their minimum fee set at 0. And this is the exploit. It's finding the major place in the network, particularly if it's a non-mining node, but that is queried often, and sending out. So I'm going to send out this no fee onto the Dash network right now via BlockCipher.
So this is his fake transaction. This is the first transaction that he's going to broadcast with 0 mining fees, and it works because he's basically relaying it onto the network for free. And then after this, he's going to broadcast the second transaction that he created with a fee.
So right now, if I'm only querying BlockCipher, it appears that here is a transaction. It's got 0 fees. It's got pretty low confidence and miner value here, miner preference. You can see here it is, but it's valid. 0 confirmation so far. So here's the transaction, though. Let's get this transaction hash, and then let's see if it's been propagated throughout the network, which it should be at this point. So we go to Dash. We copy it in. No matching records found. Well, let's try it again. Maybe it just has not propagated yet. Maybe that's the issue. We've got still no matching records found. Try it one last time. No matching records found. So if someone is querying the main Dash insight at this point, that input has not yet been spent, which means I can now go and I can broadcast that same transaction, yet with a fee, like we already saw, a valid above the miner minimum. I can take a look at this transaction now on the Dash Explorer, and you see there it is. Perfectly fine. Let's see what happens if I look at it, that same transaction I just did on BlockCipher. Warning, this transaction has been double spent by this. Be extremely careful when accepting this transaction. Here's a double spend. This was completely non-technical. Anyone could have done this. So were the merchant to be looking at BlockCipher, in that time that it took me, the merchant would have it would have came up on their point of sale as saying, yep, it's paid. I would have walked out with my merchandise, and then I could have just sent this transaction over. Now, Dash confirms very quickly. Let's just refresh this. We see we've got one confirmation. Here's where it gets super crazy. So the merchant thinks that they have this confirmation, or thinks that they have this 0 conf, because Dash can do 0 conf. They go back, but now they go to look after one confirmation, and no transaction found with that hash.
So it disappeared, and the reason why it disappeared is because it invalidated that first transaction, the one with 0 fees.
It has vanished from BlockCipher. Completely vanished. As though it never existed. Now, we can still go on.
So that's a trip, right? Because he basically double spent a merchant, or he could potentially do it. So let's kind of break this down and like why this works this way. Okay, so remember how I said each node has a memory pool? Well, to get into the memory pool, your transaction actually has to fit it has to look a certain way, right? And some nodes have minimum relay fees, and if you have a wallet where you can broadcast a transaction with 0 fees, like you can do with BlockCipher, well, that node will try to relay it across the network, but it'll never propagate. And the reason why it'll never propagate or get relayed to other nodes in the network is because it doesn't fit the minimum relay fee parameters, because you put 0 fees in it, right? And so even though it exists in the BlockCipher node, it'll never exist and never get relayed throughout anywhere in the network because of the minimum transaction fees, the minimum relay fees. And so that's why when you make a transaction with fees, that gets broadcast because that fits the criteria, and it gets included in the memory pool, and it gets relayed all across throughout the network. Okay, and so to be honest, like this attack vector is kind of limited. It only works if like the business person is using block cipher's node, or you can like kind of psychologically try to trip someone out by screenshotting or showing them this link saying like, hey, I paid, when in reality you only paid on the block cipher node and then you double spend, right? So so this is another example of how a business person who accepts zero confirmation can get screwed out of their merchandise out of something called a double spend. And so those are two pretty strong examples of why zero confirmation is not a good idea. Now, the last one is something that you would actually find on Bitcoin, okay? And this is with something called replace by fee. Now, Bitcoin has added a feature called replace by fee, or RBF. And the reason why they added this is because Bitcoin's fee market was kind of crazy. Back in November and December, transaction fees were up to like $20, right? But before the spike, people were sending in transactions at like maybe like $1, $2. And so the $1 to $2 transaction fees, or the transactions with $1 to $2 fees never would get through. Some of them would drop out of the meme pool because the meme pool was carrying 3 gigabytes worth of transactions or whatever, and they would get pushed out. And so these transactions would forever be pending. And so one thing that you could do is Bitcoin did was they added this feature called RBF, where you can spend from the same Bitcoin address with the same amount, except this time you increase the fee. You increase the fee of your transaction. And so now when the miner, they see these two transactions in their memory pool, they see one that's like, I don't know, $1 for a transaction fee, and then they see another one that's $15 transaction fee. And so they're obviously going to include the $15 transaction fee into the block, right? And so that's kind of how RBF works on Bitcoin. And RBF is opt-in on Bitcoin. Not every wallet has it, but if you are a merchant, you should definitely not accept zero confirmations, especially when the meme pool is clogged and there's a huge backlog in transactions, because it's just a whole lot easier to double spend with RBF. So it's a lot more user-friendly too, because a lot of wallets have made it more accessible to use RBF, and it's and so yeah, and the miners are going to take the transaction with the higher mining fee. Like there's no reason why a miner would take one with the lower transaction fee. So yeah, RBF does not exist on Litecoin. I think Charlie posted on the subreddit once, like last year, and asked if the Litecoin community wanted to add RBF, but I think at this point there's really no need for RBF, and I don't see any protocol that requires RBF. And so yeah, unless the Litecoin network gets super clogged or whatever, then it might be worthwhile to consider to include an opt-in RBF like Bitcoin does. But I don't know until we get to that point. I just don't see it necessary for us to include RBF. Does Digibyte have RBF? I don't know. My assumption is that they probably don't, just because they have such short block times and their meme pool clears up pretty fast. So yeah. All right, so do you guys have any other questions when it comes to zero confirmations and double spends? And if there's anything that I can clarify for you guys, please let me know, because this was kind of top heavy today. No double spends on Digibyte. You can still do a double spend on Digibyte with majority hash rate, but I think it would be a lot harder to do it because you have such fast block times. So it'd be, yeah. But having faster block times is good in the sense that it makes faster payments and confirmations, but it's kind of bad in the sense that it increases your orphan rate significantly, and so that puts more stress on the network. So I haven't looked into Digibyte's technology, and I don't know if they've implemented anything to kind of mitigate that. But yeah. We should test my theory by dropping some LTC into a wallet. Yeah, I mean, if we can find a highly connected node, and I can just, yeah, maybe I can do it through block cipher with Litecoin and see what that happens, and see what happens with that. So the remedy is to wait for 2+ confirmations. If you're a merchant, I would wait for, yeah, like 2, 3, 4, like why not 8 confirmations or something like that. That's like, yeah, that's less than 20 minutes. Will confirmations with Litecoin in the future get faster? I don't think so. I think Litecoin will probably stick to 2.5 minute block times. And so confirmations happen with every block. So I don't see that changing any time in the future. Yeah, 6 is pretty good. 6 is a pretty good number to wait for in terms of confirmation. Yeah, thank you guys for stopping by and chatting and listening. Hopefully this was helpful. And yeah. All right, guys. It was a bit shorter of a live stream today, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and enjoy the rest of your week. I'll talk to you guys later. Off topic, but how's the node been working out for you? The node. Are you talking about my Lightning Network node? Jake? Yeah, my Lightning Network node. Right now, it's been okay. It's been a bit of a hassle because I have to leave my computer on 24/7. And and you need a static IP if you want to route payments. So for other people to connect to you and so on and so forth. So I bought a VPN with the static IP, and I've been trying to do that. The VPN will randomly get disconnected once in a while, and so I'll have to double check on it. But overall, it's pretty cool because I get to earn routing fees. So I've earned like 8 Litoshis on routing. And hopefully I get to a place in the future as the Lightning Network develops and grows that I can continue to be a reliable routing node and earn more money that way. Right now, Lightning Network for Litecoin is pretty small, so we definitely need more people to get up there, and more businesses and games and applications for people to start using the Litecoin LN network. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, give me a thumbs up if you liked the tutorial. I've included some donation addresses for you guys to kind of consider, and have a good rest of the week. Take care, y'all.